Welcome to this very special episode of Bippity Boppity Business. I'm standing here in beautiful Kauai, Hawaii. There's an ocean behind me. There's flowers everywhere. I have a flower in my hair. And I'm here to give you the down low on why one of the most iconic Disney movies was made and created here, and how that branding, setting, location, and storytelling of that movie made it so iconic. If you want to find a way to make your brand feel iconic, memorable, and give it a tangible anchor, a place in people's hearts, where wherever they go, a piece of it reminds them of your business's story, stay tuned and we'll get right into this episode. This is gonna be a good one. Today, we're diving into the iconic branding and storytelling lessons that businesses can learn from the beloved Disney movie, Lilo and Stitch. And what's even more exciting is that we took a pit stop earlier to Hanapepe, the real-life location that inspired the Disney directors to create the movie. All of the geography and cute little historic shops in there replicated in the movie itself. But this is Bippity Boppity Business. So before I get into the educational value and B2B storytelling and branding aspects of the movie that you can learn and love, I absolutely have to share some fun facts about the movie and the location of Hanapepe. Hanapepe served as the inspiration for the fictional town in the 2002 Disney classic Lilo and Stitch. This little beach town, often referred to as Kauai's biggest little town, is home to 2,700 residents. Hanapepe's historic plantation-style buildings are now vibrant hubs of activity, housing charming shops, eateries, and art galleries. And bonus, true Disney fans might recognize the Lilo and Stitch-inspired mural located off the main road. Though it's not teeming with Disney merchandise, Hanapepe's real attraction lies in its authenticity and iconic landmarks, like the Hanapepe Swinging Bridge. The charm of Hanapepe is that it doesn't need to ride on its Disney fame, it stands out on its own. So while these are truly fun facts, how are they relevant to your branding? These things were considered by the Disney directors when they felt inspired to create a unique movie based on a location that has never been used or implemented in a Disney movie before at that time prior to Moana. So let's get down to the business side of all this bippity boppity. The truth is, it's not only the message that inspires us as brands, but the premise and the emotional connection that takes it to that next level. And if you actually dissect the movie Lilo and Stitch from a business, storytelling, and content strategy perspective, you'll find the movie isn't just a fun, heartwarming film. It actually contains numerous branding and storytelling elements that B2B brands can take inspiration from. And I actually have 10 content strategy, storytelling key takeaways that you can implement inspired by the movie for your brand's messaging today. Let's get right into it. Number 1, authenticity matters. In the movie Lilo and Stitch, Lilo's character is not the typical girl you see in many of the Disney films. Her quirks, struggles, and deep love for her family are all qualities that make her relatable and authentic. B2B brands need to start aiming for this type of authenticity. When you're creating your messaging, you're not crafting a perfect image, but you're crafting a story that feels genuine and honest. It shouldn't feel like a therapy session by any means, but we're all a little burnt out from influencer marketing. You can't just talk about how great your company is at what you do. What's your differentiator? What's your quirk? What's your standout moment against all the other big blue ocean of B2B brands out there that make you unique and special? When Lilo and Stitch aired, Lilo not being a princess was a disruptor. What's your disruptor that's also relatable to your industry? Number 2, emphasize the value of relationships. The central theme around the movie Lilo and Stitch revolves around ohana, which in Hawaiian means family. In B2B, relationships are crucial. Constant communication, understanding client needs, and fostering long-term relationships should be central in your branding, in your messaging. And don't forget about the value of creating content with others so that you initiate relationship for a very long time, hopefully, when you make those collaborations, your icebreaker into that venture or new business relationship. Also, what's your brand's ohana? could also mean, do you have a community? Who would that community be comprised of? And how would you engage that ohana forever so that nobody feels left behind or forgotten when it comes to your messaging? Number 3, showcase real challenges. Just like LILO and Nani face real relatable problems like the threat of separation or, an alien invasion. Could be somebody from your team is leaving, or your alien invasion is a new company coming in and acquiring your brand. I don't know. All of these things are real problems and challenges that either you or your clients are facing. Discussing them, bringing them up, and sharing how they can be overcome, or teaching people how to get through it, or just talking about them, not making everyone feel like they're so alone, is so helpful. It also is part of that relationship aspect of what we were talking about earlier. Every good story has challenges. Does your content have anything that people think to themselves and say, I wonder how they're going to get through this? Or let me stay and listen to the end to see what they did or see what happens next. If not, you might not have a great story. You might just have, a stream of consciousness or a monologue moment. Not sure. But every great story has a plot twist and a turning point where something was not going so great, and then whoop, they did it. They succeeded. So what's your challenge or turning point that you want to imbue into your messaging and brand consistently to make your content stand out? Diversity, it's a powerful tool in building connection and trust. Making sure your content has representation doesn't have to be a faux pas thing. Just think, do we have different perspectives on this show? And anyway, does everyone look the same, think the same, act the same? Because diversity or not, if that's the case, it could be kind of boring. Try to think about that for a second and see how that could be implemented into your content.
Sorry, friends, we lost the footage for tip number 5, but please continue to enjoy the rest of the episode. There are so many more tips that it's honestly for the best. Let's keep going.
Number 6, crafting a compelling backstory. Your business may not have the same origin story as Stitch, a genetically engineered fugitive alien who lands on the shore of Hawaii. But when I say that sentence, aren't you intrigued? Think of your business's story as if it were a movie. What's the backstory? What is the pivotal moment that took your business from what it was to what it is now? And think about that why and try to infuse it in your messaging. When you have a compelling backstory, when you have an origin of a founder, especially in a B2B brand, that's brought to life, consistently woven in throughout the content and the brand, it really gives that sense of connection to a brand of more than just a business, but that somebody created that business. Other brands do this really well. For example, think about Disney itself, Walt Disney. We know about the founder and all the relations to how that company grew because of the consistency and intentionality that's put into that messaging for their brand. So you can easily do that. You may not have had a moment where it was a rags to riches founder story for your brand, but really think about how the company got to where it is and personifying it. And it really does tie into personal branding as well too, because brands that have a strong personal brand founder presence often are a little more relatable and compelling and are a bit easier to craft these kinds of origin stories for. Number 7, the use of strong visual imagery. The lush landscapes of Hawaii, surfing scenes, and energetic chase sequences stick in the viewer's mind whenever you watch Lilo and Stitch. Similarly, as a B2B brand, you should be investing in strong visual branding elements that make you memorable. When brands don't do this, it really feels like a cop-out. It feels like they're using a general color that other brands use, and they're afraid to really stand out. And what happens is when you're afraid to stand out, unfortunately, you will blend in, which is the adverse effect of what you want from your content. So when it comes to creating content that stands out, you have to think of visual components that can relate to not just the aesthetic of what you're trying to do, but your cohesive brand as a whole. Lilo and Stitch was so pivotal because these memorable scenes were intentional. They were crafted with the purpose of being memorable for a very long time. And they did it in ways that felt relatable to the viewer. So, for example, if your visual branding is bland and boring, but your target audience is lively and creative and energetic, you probably need to reconsider all of your content. And that's the other thing. The use of strong visual imagery isn't just a one-time thing. It has to be done consistently. So you may not be able to have your viewers taste or smell anything on the screen, but what other senses can you engage from that branding to unlock the memory piece of that connectivity for your content? Just some food for thought. Number 8, inject humor when appropriate. Despite the emotional depth of Lilo and Stitch, themes of loss and loneliness, the movie is also filled with a substantial amount of humor. As a brand, try not to shy away from using wit or humor in your content. It can make your messaging feel more engaging and entertaining. Don't forget, content should be just a little bit entertaining as well for it to be memorable and create your super fans. The 9th content strategy that you can take away from the movie Lilo and Stitch is the consistency in messaging throughout their storytelling. Themes of ohana, never feeling left behind, resilience are all woven throughout the movie to make it feel like a cohesive piece. I cannot emphasize this enough. Consistency in your branding's messaging is what creates that sense of belonging to the brand, and also that consistency in messaging reinforces your brand's identity to your target audience and builds trust as well. If the movie were about Ohana and Lilo and Stitch and family, but then they suddenly started talking about how, they didn't need their siblings and they didn't care about who they loved or who they belonged with, they didn't care about who was in their family anymore, and they didn't need anybody, and they were off to, ignore all those themes, it would probably feel suddenly very jarring to the viewer. So when you create your content, keep in mind how important that consistency in your messaging is. For example, let's say your brand is a huge advocate for sustainability in all of your messaging. If suddenly one of your executives posts content that contradicts that messaging, it's going to feel very out of left field and confusing for the viewer. So really consider what your themes are and try to weave it in through everything that you do. Number 10, creating taglines and moments that stand out. For example, at some point in the movie, Stitch says, "I'm not a monster, I'm just different." What an amazing tagline. It's embracing uniqueness. It's going further and deeper than the surface of what this character is. What's your tagline? Is it unique? Does it stand out? Does it echo on for an entire generation where people are saying it in jokes and in memes and family gatherings? I know I don't say "I'm not a monster, I'm just different" at a family gathering. Like, one of the things from Stitch's sayings that really get me is "blue punch buggy" or whatever. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's going deeper and creating a unique tagline, creating a unique through line that can stand out and punch through. And those memorable call outs are present throughout the entire movie. And it's probably why it's so successful. So if you want to be just as successful, I'm not saying, okay, make your brand look like Lilo and Stitch. I'm saying this is all a metaphor, an analogy for different facets of the storytelling strategies that are used in the movie that you can try to implement for your own brand. In its essence, while Lilo and Stitch is a family film, its core principles of authenticity, relationship building, uniqueness, adaptability are all universally applicable and can be extremely effective when you incorporate them into your B2B branding and storytelling strategies. So there you have it, 10 content strategies, storytelling tips that you can learn from LILO and STITCH that we just went through together on this tropical, exotic version of Bippity Boppity Business. Thank you so much for joining me. If you would like to stay tuned for more movie-inspired content strategy tips for your business or brand, make sure to follow Bippity Boppity Business everywhere that you like to listen to your podcasts. Have a magical day!